Most GRC professionals are using AI completely wrong. They ask it to do strategic work and get generic garbage back, then conclude AI isn't useful for governance or compliance. But after using Claude inside my own GRC workflow for months, I think they're missing where the real leverage actually is. Because Claude is not replacing the strategic parts of GRC, it's eliminating huge amounts of operational labor. Evidence chasing, questionnaire responses, policy first drafts, leadership summaries, the kind of work that quietly consumes hours every single week. So in this video, I'm going to show you where Claude actually works inside a real GRC workflow. The administrative layer of GRC work is enormous. And think, most people underestimate how much time gets consumed by operational overhead. Evidence collection, status tracking, security questionnaires, policy formatting, open item management, first drafts. If you're spending 60% of your time on these tasks, you're not spending that time on risk analysis, executive communication, stakeholder alignment, or governance strategies, which are the things that actually increase value long term. And the interesting thing is, AI isn't particularly good at replacing judgment. It's not good at replacing context. It's not good at replacing governance relationships, but it is very good at reducing labor. That's the distinction, not strategy, the labor. And right now, very few GRC professionals are actually using AI this way. According to Metric Stream's 2025 GRC practitioner survey, only 13.76% of GRC practitioners have meaningfully integrated AI into their workflows, which means the people learning this now are probably building a pretty significant output advantage over the next few years. So here's a really simple example. One of the most repetitive parts of GRC is constantly requesting evidence from teams. Normally, I'd spend several minutes writing this, adjusting tone, or rewriting sections. Instead, I use Claude to generate the first draft instantly. So this prompt says, write a professional email requesting evidence of change management controls. And notice the brackets here, that's where you put your actual audits window. Now watch this. What used to take 10 minutes now takes maybe 60 seconds. Every GRC professional has a story about security questionnaires consuming days of work, especially when the answers are scattered across engineering, IT, security teams. This is honestly one of the highest friction workflows in governance. So this prompt, it says, describe your organization's approach to access controls. And these bullet points in the brackets, that's where you swap in your actual environment's details, your tools, your controls. This is where AI starts paying for itself very quickly. Because instead of manually drafting every response from scratch, you give Claude structured context, and now you're editing and validating instead of creating from zero. That distinction matters, especially at scale. This one is probably my favorite because this is where AI actually becomes career leverage. One of the biggest differences between a senior level and a staff level GRC professional is the ability to translate technical risk into business language. And most people struggle with that transition initially. So the prompt says, translate this technical risk description into an executive summary. And the brackets at the bottom is where you would paste your risk from your risk register directly. Notice what Claude does well here. It simplifies the language. It reframes technical exposure into business impact, financial risk, operational disruptions, leadership facing communication. Now, obviously, you still need to validate accuracy and context, but as a starting point, this is incredibly useful for practicing executive level communication. Policy writing is another huge time sink, especially when you're starting with a blank page trying to structure the document. This prompt says draft an access control policy for a mid-size B2B SaaS company. And notice it already has the sections built in: purpose, scope, provisioning. You don't have to tell it what to include. Again, this is not a final policy. You still need organizational alignment, legal review, in some cases, environment specific controls, and leadership approval. But the skeleton, the structure, the formatting, that now takes seconds instead of hours. And honestly, starting is usually the hardest part. This is where things get really interesting for multi-framework environments. So this one says map SOC 2 CC 6.1 to ISO 27001 and NIST's CSF. No brackets here. It's ready to run as is. This is the kind of prompt that would have saved me hours doing this manually. Cross-framework mapping is incredibly time-consuming manually. SOC 2, ISO 27001, NIST, PCI, FedRAMP. There's an enormous overlap, but organizing it takes time. And what Claude gives you here is not a final compliance determination. It gives you a starting point for analysis. That's a very important distinction. If you blindly trust AI outputs in a compliance environment, you're going to create problems. But as a workflow accelerator, this is extremely powerful. I want to be very direct about the limitations here because overselling AI helps nobody. Claude cannot replace your judgment. It does not understand your organization's actual risk appetite. It does not understand political dynamics. It does not understand stakeholder trust. It does not understand your audit history. And it absolutely cannot replace human governance relationships. The G in GRC is governance. Governance is fundamentally human. And in high stakes environments, the auditor is not talking to your AI tool, they're talking to you. So the way I think about AI is very simple. Use it for the operational labor. Do the strategic work yourself. That combination is where the real leverage exists. If you're not using AI in your GRC workflow yet, the learning curve is honestly much lower than most people think. Start with one use case. Pick the task you hate the most. Try the prompt. See what happens. There's even more that can be done with AI. These were just simple prompts. You can automate things and create skills so that you get repeatable outcomes. But start. Because the advantage is not that AI replaces GRC professionals. The advantage is that it gives good GRC professionals more operational bandwidth for the work that actually matters. And I think the people building these workflows now are going to have a very significant output advantage over the next 12 to 24 months. Next video on Thursday, I'm breaking down ISO 42001, the AI governance standard that companies are suddenly scrambling to understand, and why organizations are paying massive premiums for people who can operate in that space early. And I'm curious, what's the GRC task you'd most want AI to handle for you right now? Drop it in the comments.